Hello friends, again happy new year. I think today is January the 3rd and I am a member of this amazing Facebook group called Black People's Pound Cake. And by the way, it's open to all ethnicities, okay? Not just black people, it's just people sharing wonderful recipes that were probably 90% created by a very melanated individual. So there's a trend in that group where someone honored Miss Johnnie, Ruth, I forgot her last name, but everyone's making her cake. She passed it along to a young man in her church, and he shared it with everyone. And I love that because, hey, I really don't share my secret cake recipes because I sell them. Very few, like my German chocolate, I've shared that because it's not my recipe. I just tweak the boxes. So anyone that shares their original recipes, kudos to them, because most people are very protective of their recipes. I mean, look at Patti LaBelle. She's making millions off of people buying her sweet potato pies. And she didn't share that recipe, did she? So kudos to Miss Johnnie Ruth. And I was inspired by looking at that recipe. So I'm going to make it today. I'm not going to drag on. I'm going to make it. However, I believe that recipe was probably created a long time ago because I think Miss Johnnie Ruth was in her 90s when she passed away, and eggs were not as large as they are now. Her recipe calls for 7. So I'm going to take responsibility if this cake flops. I'm not going to use 7 because I always buy large eggs, and I've read several of the comments that the texture was a little eggy to them. So I'm going to reduce the eggs to 6 eggs. Another change I'm going to make, I don't have a convection oven. I have a conventional gas oven. And when I bake on 325, for some reason my cakes fall. So I'm going to trust my oven that I always bake on 350. So that's another change. Instead of 7 eggs, I'm using 6. I'm using my gas oven that I know very well for about 13 years now. I bake on 350. And one last change, I didn't have salted butter because I never buy salted butter. So I did add a pinch of salt because my butter is always unsalted. And those are the only minor changes. So let's get in the kitchen and get started on this cake. And I'm going to be 100% honest with you and taste it in front of you and let you know how it turns out. Let's go. All right, first thing first, we're going to preheat our oven to 350. These are all the ingredients. You can get the recipe at the end of this video. I'll post it. You want to start off by creaming your butter first. That's what I do. I cream mine first before I add the sugar. So let's say I cream it for about 5 to 7 minutes. And then I will scrape the sides down like you see me doing here. Now I'm adding the sugar, and I will cream it for an additional 7 to 9 minutes. That's the key for a pound cake. To make it not too heavy, you want your cream and sugar fluffy, all right? Make sure you're constantly scraping down the sides and at the bottom. I'm going to let it cream a little bit more. And I noticed the young man who released it, he used the whisk beaters. I just used the paddle. All right. Like I said, I'm only using 6 eggs, and I break them into a bowl just in case a shell drops. I don't want it in the cake. All right. My butter and sugar has been creaming now for about 15 to 17 minutes. You see that texture? That's what you want. Sorry, the camera cut off, but I used 2 drawer teaspoon size of vanilla extract. And I used 2 drawer size, and that's Miss Johnnie Ruth's vocabulary that she used, drawer. Those are the spoons that you pull out your drawer, not your measuring spoons. You use the spoons that you eat with at your home of lemon extract. All right, if you notice, I put in the extract flavorings first because eggs, you have to be very careful not to overbeat them. So now I'm going to go in and add the eggs one at a time. And I'm going to take my little, what do you call this, little spatula, and mix it in just a little bit. If you overbeat your eggs, your cake will be tough. So I'm going to speed this up and enter the eggs for you separately. Give me a second. All right, I gave them a little mix with the spatula, one at a time. I didn't want to use the beater because I don't want a chance overbeating my eggs. Now that they're all in, I'm going to briefly give them a little mix while I add in the sweetened condensed milk. And I don't know about you, but it's not easy to measure it because it's so thick. But the original recipe called for 3/4 of a cup of sweetened condensed milk. So that's what I added here. This is my first time honestly baking a cake with that much sweetened condensed milk. All right, I've started adding the flour a little bit at a time. Traditional pound cakes, you start with flour and you alternate with the milk. The original recipe didn't say to do that, so I added the milk first, but I am adding the flour in a little at a time, actually in thirds, and giving it a little whisk with the spoon. Scraping along the sides and making sure I scrape the bottom, because you don't want to get ready to pour your pound cake and you see dry, unmixed batter at the bottom. Go on and hit that like for me. I appreciate it. All right. Gonna give it a little whisk again. And I've speeded it up. I'm honestly not beating it this fast. So I would do a slow to medium, quick little 1 minute mix to make sure everything is incorporated. All right, and I sped that part up for you. Like I said, mix either on low or medium. Now I'm going to take this little paddle off and scrape all of my batter down because I don't believe in wasting. Getting every drop. And now I'm going to give this mixture one last little blend to make sure everything is well incorporated. Scraping down at the bottom so I don't see any flour. Everything is well blended. All right, so it's all mixed. I'm going to use a bundt pan because I don't have the other kind of pan that some people use. I love to use Baker's Joy. But rats, this can is empty. Thank goodness I have a can of store brand baking with flour. I'll use that. Now sometimes when I don't have either one of these, I'll go on and do the old-fashioned way. I'll grease it with butter Crisco and a little flour and shake off the flour. But today I'm using spray. Now this is how I get my pound cake batter into my pan. If you notice, I oiled it very well around the tube part and the outside. And I spin my bundt pan around so that it is leveled. You don't want a wop-sized pound cake. And yes, I'm scraping every drop. All right, I'm going to use a spoon now and try and smooth it out so that, again, it's leveled in this pan. Cleaning it up a little bit. Tap the counter, and I have speeded it up for you. Put it in the oven on 350 for 60 minutes. I pulled it out. This long skewer stick was clean. I'm going to let it rest here for 15 minutes before I flip it out. All right, I pulled out my mother-in-law's classic vintage cake pan because this cake is worthy of it. Don't you agree? It's beautiful.
It's not as light brown as others, and it's probably because I use Baker's Joy instead of the traditional grease and flour. I did make a glaze over it with the leftover Eagle, what is it? Sweetened condensed milk and a little, what is that called? Canned milk. I mix those with some powdered sugar, vanilla extract, some lemon extract, and I'm drizzling it over the cake, and it is absolutely stunning. If you want the recipe to this little glaze, just hit me up in the comments and I can find the video and share it with you. All right, this is what it looks like. I'm going to cut it for you. And that crumb is beautiful.
All right, friends, I am done baking the Johnnie Ruth pound cake in homage to her. As you notice, I pulled out my 93-year-old mother-in-law's cake plate because I had to honor my ancestors and my elders while I was baking this cake. So this cake deserved the same era of treatment. So my mother-in-law is probably close to what Miss Johnnie Ruth would be if she were alive today. So as you can see, the crumb looks tight. It smells good. Let's see. And let me say this, you don't have to make a glaze for a pound cake. Pound cakes can be eaten with the glaze or without. Just my babe loves a glaze on his, so I did make a little one. All right, let's see. This cake is delicious. Now I was almost tempted to put a sugar syrup over it once it came out the oven, but because that's usually what I do with my cake, but I didn't this time since the original author didn't call for it. This is a delicious cake. It's really good. And I was surprised because it didn't call for any baking soda or baking powder. It's good, y'all. You can see it. I'm going on my new eating plan at the end of this week. Today is January 3rd, so I have until Saturday to get started. And this is going to be dangerous. For the young man who shared this treasure with us, I want to say thank you. For those of you who are apprehensive about trying it, try it. With baking, you get in there and you just try. My first time baking a pound cake, I was 10 years old. And for the life of me, I could not bake a pound cake until I got in my 20s. I mean, they were heavy. It didn't matter if I sifted the flour or what, but my pound cakes are perfected. I did not sift this flour. I was tempted to because, you know, I'm a creature of habit and that's what I do. I sift my flour, but I did not since the original creator said you don't have to. And that person was so right. Last bite for you. That's good, right? Hit me up in the comments and let me know, what did you think of this video, all right? What would you have done differently? All right. Don't forget to hit like, comment, and subscribe and share. Peace.
All right, let's give a special thanks to Hivante Legal Robinson for publicly releasing Miss Johnnie Ruth's pound cake.